Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night, 7:04 p.m. Central, and we got Wham here with us. Wham representing, and tonight's guest, Robert W. Sullivan. How's it going, Robert? Great to have you here.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me on the Church of Mabus. It's my pleasure to be here. I think the last time I was here was about 7 or 8 years ago, so it's been a while. So, I look forward to tonight's episode.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it, and love movies. And so you are a Freemason. I live. My stepdad was a Freemason. He's passed now, and that's where I live now with my mom. And we find he has a lot of pictures and stuff. But are you a Freemason?
Oh yes, I've been a Freemason now for over 25 years. I joined in 1997 was when I did the degree work for the Blue Lodge, and then I joined the Scottish Rite in 1999. So I've been a Freemason now for quite some time.
And when it comes to the cinema symbolism, are we looking for Freemason stuff or is it other stuff? What do you kind of? I know you tackle a lot in it, but what are some of the? Is that some of it?
Yeah, I mean it's a wide range of topics. Freemasonry is just one of many. I get into themes related to ancient religions and heresies such as Gnosticism. I get into numbers. I deal with alchemy, which ties into Gnosticism. There is some Freemasonry in it. There's a lot of symbolism. I mean, it can be it's like I've been on other shows. I say it's a vast palette they paint with. You can be dealing with actors who are there for specific reasons. The costuming can have meaning. The music can have meaning. It's a very highly complex subject, and movies can also be prophetic. That's an interesting topic as well, where they seem to predict things, and that's something I deal with also. So it's a very wide topic, but yeah, there is an element of Freemasonry to it.
And I saw in some of your notes some mentioning of the Batman and the Joker, and I collect a lot of those comics, and of course have seen all the movies and stuff. And you were saying things about Joker, like some John Wayne Gacy kind of stuff, and then Thomas Wayne kind of being like Trump and some interesting things. But that Joker archetype is creepy. I mean, I know there's people that have snapped and like shot up Walmarts dressed like the Joker and stuff. There's something creepy about that archetype. You could just kind of, it's like a weird trickster energy that's not good or something, but it's a fascinating character nonetheless. But what are some things about that, if you want to tell us about
Sure, sure.
Batman and the Joker? I saw that Tim Burton Jack Nicholson in high school, and I ended up dressing up like the Joker for senior dress up day. Like it snapped something in my brain, that Jack Nicholson situation. I'm over it now, but but tell
Right,
us about that.
right. Well, the Joker corresponds to the first tarot, the first Trump tarot, which is the Magician, which is Mercury, and of course, Mercury is the destructive agent. And that's exactly what you have with the Joker. You'll find this figure in other guises. The Joker is probably one of the more famous ones. And the movie with Joaquin Phoenix, I thought was just very, very well done. I liked it very much. I get into a lot of the Batman mythology in a lot of my books. It's very Jungian with the shadow self, things related to Hermeticism, the daemon and the Adidolon, the lower and higher self. You find this in themes like the Watchmen, where the masked persona, the masked vigilante, is the person's true identity, not their usual everyday self. The Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix was very well done. I noticed with it, and this was something that you had mentioned was the that particular movie. The face paint of the Joker was modeled after the John Wayne Gacy Pogo the Clown face paint. Um, he had two clown personas, Pogo, which is probably the more well known of the two. There was another one named Patches. They had different costumes, but they had the exact same face paint. And if you look at it very closely, and psychologists and psychiatrists have examined this, the Gacy face paint with the dark blue squares over the eyes, or triangles, excuse me, and then the grinning red face, subconsciously is supposed to resemble a death's head, a human skull. And they concluded that Gacy was probably doing this subconsciously because, of course, he killed children, or at least young men, and that the face paint was actually designed to be terrifying, not enjoyable. And you'll find that if you watch the Joker film with Phoenix, the face paint is distinctively modeled after Gacy's pogo.
Yeah.
It's very disturbing. And when you watch the movie, um, if you remember, the nightclub that Arthur Fleck does his stand up in is actually called Pogo's, which is an homage, of course, to John Wayne Gacy. So it was very, very, very dark movie. And one of
It's
the things
good.
that was also very unique in that was the Thomas Wayne character, as you correctly pointed out, was clearly meant to be a Trump analog. And the one thing that was very unique in that was the movie was released a few years earlier, and there's actually a reference. If you look at one of the newspapers, one of the headlines is "Problems with the Ukraine," and of course, this was, I interpreted this as somewhat foreshadowing Trump's impeachment over Ukraine. Very, very interesting to say the least. It's not the first time, of course, that movies have been prophetic, but certainly a very compelling example.
Yeah, and I hear in the second one we're going to get some Brendan Gleeson, which I'm always down for some Brendan Gleeson for sure, and something. He's going to be in the second Joker somehow. But I saw that movie with him in it, Banshees of Inisherim or something. I don't know if you've seen it, but it has I know I'm messing the name up, but it came out not too long ago. It has Colin Farrell in it and Brendan Gleeson. And it's by the guy that did some billboards in blah, blah, blah county that won awards. But the movie is strictly Irish, has Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell, and they're friends. And Brendan Gleeson decides he does not want to be friends with this person anymore. And it gets absolutely insane. Like, I don't want to give any of it away, but it's crazy. But it's the guy that did it has won awards and stuff. But what's interesting about that new Joker movie that's really weird is Todd Phillips did this crazy movie a long time ago about Gigi Allen, and I saw it with friends a long time ago. I will not watch it again. It is sick about this punk rock guy that's a real guy that really hurt himself on stage and did crazy stuff that was disgusting. That was Todd Phillips' first movie, and it's like known through punk people and all that stuff. It was just about a guy, Gigi Allen, that was the lead singer of a punk band, and he was very disgusting. Like, I'm not even going to get into it. But I'm looking forward to the second Joker for sure. And that new Batman with the Riddler, did you get to see that with the Riddler with Paul Dano? That he did an amazing job. The villain in that was crazy. Like, that was definitely part of that same kind of crazy archetype, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, well the Batman with Robert Pattinson is the Bible, of course, is the Book of Revelation, and the whole thing is just the Bible retold. With the 7 days the movie takes place, the destruction by the flood waters. Batman leading the chosen through the flood waters at the end. And of course the Riddler in that one, I very much like that movie. The Riddler was, of course, based on the Zodiac killer, who terrorized the San
He was
Francisco Bay Area.
nuts. He did a good job of nuts.
In
for
the San
sure.
Francisco Bay Area in the late 1960s, with codes and ciphers and things like that. The Batman movie is actually going to appear in the next cinema book that I'm working on right now. That'll be in Cinema Symbolism 4. I've analyzed that. I've seen the movie. I have it here on Blu-ray. I thought it was a great film. I liked it very much, and
Yeah.
I like the direction that they did with the Riddler, with the Zodiac killer. I thought that was very well done.
And then I saw that deleted scene with the Joker that they left out of it. They only put some of it in, but I'm pretty sure that guy's going to be in the next one or third one or whatever. There are some more, like the Joker situation, Barry Keoghan or something. I forget his name, but he did that little scene where they're in the prison together and Joker's talking to him and you can't barely see his face. But the guy that did Planet of the Apes is doing did the Batman, and that guy makes pretty good movies. Those Planet of the Apes were pretty good with Woody Harrelson and all that, and he does a good job. So definitely looking forward to those. They're also doing a spin-off of that Batman movie on HBO with Colin Farrell as the Penguin, a whole like TV show, with episodes. And I heard they're going to be doing some kind of Arkham Asylum television show on there that takes place in the prison and with all the villains and stuff, which hopefully if the same guy that's doing the Batman's doing it, so hopefully they're not gonna suck. But I'm HBO, man, they canceled that Doom Patrol. They canceled the crap out of stuff. Doom Patrol was really good and on the fourth season, so I'm not sure they whacked it recently, but that was a great superhero show based on an old DC comic that's really good. So what are some of what movies are the craziest with this kind of stuff that have the most kind of symbolism in it that just are overpouring with it?
Well, it depends on what kind of symbolism you're asking about, because there's different ones. I mean, movies that for me, that are some of the ones that within the last couple of years or so. I mean, I think of like Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, which has a lot going on in it. I think of Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan, which has a lot going on in it.
That's
The,
weird.
the Batman movie,
That's an intense movie.
yeah,
That's
the Batman movie you just mentioned, I felt had a lot going on in it. I very much liked the new trilogy that they did of the Halloween movies. There was some very interesting things going on in that. I thought those were the third one was very
That
reminiscent.
got weird. That
Yeah,
got different. They tried something different. I didn't hate it. I mean, I liked them, but yeah, that was definitely got bizarre, different for sure.
yeah, there was a lot going on in the third one that I very much liked. A lot of esoteric themes going on, and it's just again those are just some of the ones off the top of my head. Um, but you know I know I will definitely. I think I put out something on this. I mean, I don't think I can release the next book until at least I see the second Joker movie because the first one was just overloaded with stuff, and I suspect the second one's going to have a lot going on in it as well. Very macabre movie, but yeah, those are some of the ones. I mean, I talk about some of the stuff with James Bond and the origins of some of the characters, and of course, the influence of Aleister Crowley on Ian Fleming. That's always an interesting topic. So that's some of the stuff I talk about. The last, really the last movie that I analyzed, and it took me forever to do, was the last Halloween movie, Halloween Ends. I've done all three of them. I analyzed the first one, the Halloween 2018 movie, in the last book I just did, and Kills and Ends are both going on in the next book. And I really felt that Ends had a lot. It reminded me of a movie very much like Black Swan, where it was the exploration of the dark side, the darkness within, and there was just all three of those movies just have so much going on in them. I thought they were very well done. I like them.
And The Devil Rides Out. I see that in your notes with Aleister Crowley and Dennis Wheatley. I love Hammer movies. I try to get them all on DVD or whatever, or Blu-ray or whatever. But that's an interesting movie, Devil Rides Out. Is there a lot of symbolism in the Hammer movies?
Well, it depends on which one. The Devil Rides Out is a good one. It's funny with that movie because yeah, the guy who wrote that was Dennis Wheatley, as you point out, and of course the Mokata character is obviously supposed to be Crowley. Crowley turns up in a lot of movies. He's in Fleming as well, and the one thing that I've always found with Devil Rides Out that was always kind of unique is the character of Mokata. Um, when Ira Levin was writing Rosemary's Baby, he must have been influenced by that book uh, because he names the black magician in that the same name. It's Stephen Mercado. It's pronounced the same thing way phonetically. And interestingly, Devil Rides Out and both Rosemary's Baby were released in the same year, '68. When you inevitably talk about like the big satanic trio, I mean, it's Rosemary's Baby, it's The Exorcist, and The Omen. The Devil Rides Out never gets mentioned with those, and I think the reason is that because The Devil Rides Out doesn't have the dystopian ending that the other three have, where in Rosemary's Baby, Exorcist, and The Omen, evil wins. Evil wins at the end. Where in Devil Rides Out, Mokata and his coven are completely annihilated. Um, so yeah, I mean, the Charles Gray Mokata character is clearly based on Crowley, and again, that's an interesting study as well. Is the appearance of Crowley in different movies? He turns up quite often, more often than you think.
Yeah, definitely. And there's another weird one I want to see, Devil's Reign, and it has William Shatner in it or something. It looks pretty weird. I need to check that one out. But it's an older one of those older ones that I don't know. It looks like the devil's actually in it. There's someone dressed like him. It looks like some old cheese for sure that I need to visit at some point. And what is it? You mentioned the movie The Witch. That guy makes some really great movies. The Witch, of course, was really good. The Lighthouse, and he's doing a Nosferatu, and then of course the Northman. He definitely makes a lot of deep, crazy stuff for sure. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, I very much, I thought that the Lighthouse was a little too strange. He draws from a lot of mythology on that one, but he mixes it all together, and it's like a hodgepodge. It's somewhat hard to follow. I like The Witch very much. I thought that was a better movie. There is some very subtle things going on in with that.
The
Um,
Faustian Pact
well, yeah, and of course,
situation.
well, the one thing that's really it's hard to pick up on, and you really need the Blu-ray for it. Um, is there's a lot of archetypal imagery going on in that regarding the tarot cards, and the one is the wife's silver chalice is the Ace of Cups, and if you understand the symbolism of that card, you'll see how it fits into the movie. But I liked it at the end with the goat, and it's very hard to pick up on is when he morphs when he becomes the human, when he turns into a human or a demon in human form at least. If you pay very, 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 very close attention to this, it's next to impossible to see because it's for a split second when he's in his goat form and she says, speak to me, and you see the book and he stands up and he walks in front of the book. You got to pay real close attention. His left foot is still a goat. The right foot is a human, but the left foot is still a goat. Pay attention to that. I thought that was very clever.
Yeah, it's definitely good for sure. Creepy. Yeah, I like the Lighthouse, but I mean it was weird and scattered. William Defoe, of course. He's always pretty fascinating. But what was the one? God, I wonder if there's anything. Have you ever see Shadow of the Vampire, where Defoe is Nosferatu and John Malkovich is the movie director, and they're reenacting the filming of Nosferatu by F.W. Marneau?
You know, I've seen it, but it's been years. I've seen that movie, but it's been at least 15, 20 years since I've seen it.
Check it out again sometime. It's one of those you want to watch again. It's really good. I'd be curious to what's lurking in it. It's definitely weird and different compared to most things. Uh, I've always liked Nosferatu, of course, the old silent film, and then there's the Klaus Kinski Nosferatu. And so when it comes to the Faustian Pact, what are some other big movies that definitely have that in it? Devil's Advocate. I watched Fight Club again recently. That's kind of a split personality devil situation where that's just like the dark side. That's one of those where you're still trying to figure out what the hell happened in it. I guess it's like their split personality or whatever. But I know you tie in some stuff with Fight Club and 9/11 and stuff.
Yeah, the Fight Club. The Fight Club is a very Gnostic film. Again, where you have the idea of the daemon and the Iditalon, the lower and higher selves that comes out of the world of Hermeticism. And this is one of those movies that flirts with the 9/11 pre-symbolism in film or in media. It's not the best example, but it's one of many that's compelling. And of course, you have the space monkeys destroying the globe piece of corporate artwork, which is definitely reminiscent of the Sphere, which was at the World Trade Center Plaza, which was, of course, very, very badly damaged on 9/11. And then, of course, most notably, you have the end of the movie with the destruction of the financial buildings, which get imploded. And of course, Tyler Durden, Brad Pitt refers to the area as Ground Zero. So that is and this was 1999, I believe it came out. So yeah, Fight Club is one of those movies that you can list as one of these movies that predicts or at least prophesizes 9/11. In Cinema Symbolism 4, which I'm working on right now, I'm actually my first chapter is on the movies and media that predict 9/11 and some of the media also that predict the Kennedy assassination. That's very, very fascinating. And the thing that's even makes it even more strange is you will see when it comes to 9/11 and the Kennedy assassination, you will see these same numbers repeating over and over again. And I'm still struggling with why this is happening. And the numbers come straight out of the world of Aleister Crowley, of all places. So it's one of these things where I'm still working with this, but it seems to be that these events are sort of predicting or prophesizing or heralding is probably the better word. Crowley's Aeon of Horus, which of course is synonymous with the Aquarian Age, which is, at least I believe, has started. And when you read Crowley, and you sort of start picking up on the deacons and hallmarks of this new age, it's very, very disturbing. Some of the things he was writing about 100 years ago that seem to be coming true. So that's where I'm at right now. And
what was the thing about JFK's missing brain?
yeah, that's something else. I was on another podcast talking about this, and somehow or another, John F. Kennedy's brain came up, and I said, "Oh, I know where it is. This is one of the great unsolved mysteries," and it was told to me by a Kennedy insider. I have no firsthand knowledge of this, so the story I'm about to tell the listeners is hearsay evidence, but I believe it. I won't mix words or leave you with a cliffhanger. Many years ago, I was friends with a someone who was very in with the Kennedy family. I will not identify this person, but I will say this person, he or she, is no longer alive. And the subject of Kennedy's brain, which is missing, of course, was broached with this person. And the story that was told to me is this. And I got to go back in time. I got to give a little backstory on this. When Kennedy was shot in 1963 in Dallas, of course, he was taken to Parkland Hospital. And at the time, this was a local crime. This was basically first-degree murder. There was no federal statute against murdering a president. So this would have basically been under the jurisdiction of the state of Texas and the Dallas DA. And of course, that would have dictated that Kennedy's autopsy would have just been done by the doctors at Dallas, in Parkland Hospital. Of course, we know that the body was illegally moved to Bethesda Naval, where it was done under military supervision. And of course, this was very dubious. This was very nebulously done. Many of the doctors destroyed their autopsy notes. But at any rate, the brain was removed from the skull, from what was left of it at any rate. Of course, Kennedy had that massive headshot. And the idea was they were going to preserve the brain to perhaps one day decide to dissect the track of the bullet, see if it came from behind Kennedy or in front of him. At any rate, the brain was eventually stored in the National Archives in Washington, D.C. as basically crime scene evidence. And if you ever watched the movie JFK, the Oliver Stone movie about the Jim Garrison trial, Garrison, who was the DA in New Orleans at the time, had subpoenaed the National Archives to get the brain as evidence so that they could examine it to, again, try to determine where the headshot had come from.
Yeah.
And of course, the National Archives told him they didn't know where the brain was. It was missing. The story that was told to me was, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, was when Kennedy was buried, when JFK was buried in Arlington National Cemetery in 1963. In 1967, his body was moved to the location where it is now, on the hillside with the torch over top of it. And it was moved in 1967. And the story that was told to me was that Robert Kennedy, the former Attorney General, his brother, had gone into the National Archives and had removed the brain and had placed it in his brother's coffin in 1967, and that the brain is in fact buried with the president in Arlington National Cemetery. And the motivation for this was twofold. Was number one, RFK was terrified that the brain was going to wind up in the hands of like a sideshow promoter or a carnival barker, and that the brain was essentially going to go on display as a sideshow exhibit, in like a freak show. And this very, very much worried him, and he didn't want that to happen. And then the other reason is that after the murder, and I was on another show talking about this, and someone had called in and said that after a couple of years, after 2 or 3 years, the brain would have probably been liquefied at that point in time. So it would have any sort of examination of it would have been moot, and nothing could have been done with it. And at any rate, That was the story that was told to me. I have no firsthand knowledge of this. I believe the story. I have no reason to disbelieve it. The person who told it to me was 100% credible. And again, like I said, I did not witness this. It is hearsay testimony, but again, I have no reason to disbelieve it, and it's what I believe. So, if you believe the story, John F. Kennedy's brain is buried has been returned, returned with the body, and is buried at Arlington National Cemetery.
It wouldn't surprise me. All the weird stuff I heard about the Charlie Manson body and all that weird stuff, legal fights, so they could try to put it in some freak show. It wouldn't surprise me at all, for sure. Well, one thing, Wham loves David Lynch. You got some David Lynch in here. My biggest thing with David Lynch is trying to
Mulholland Drive. Yep, my favorite movie.
Mulholland Drive, and he said for Lost Highway, a cult casting of Robert Loggia. Did I say his name right? And Bill Pullman. I know who they are, but that last name is Loggia. Loggia.
Yeah, Robert Loggia. It's a the cinema of David Lynch is highly complex. It's without question some of the most difficult movies to analyze of all. I believe I've analyzed all of them at this point, except for maybe the one that he did in the 2000s. I can't remember the name of it, but I've taken on Twin Peaks and Mulholland Drive and Lost Highway and Eraserhead and Blue Velvet. And they all are decidedly Gnostic themed films. They're highly complex. The one when I talk about a cult casting, that's a phrase that I like to use. It's probably a little outdated. It's probably more of a clever art of memory technique. And what this is where a filmmaker will employ a particular actor or actress to convey some sort of theme or undercurrent from a previous work and transplant it into the new movie that's being made. And when I first started noticing this, I thought it was a very rare occurrence. It's not. It's actually very prevalent. And it's not typecasting. It's much more complex than that. Typecasting where you just you just cast Bela Lugosi over and over and over again to play the boogeyman because he played Dracula. But when I was watching the one with it's Lost Highway, that's the one with Bill Pullman and Robert Loggia. I thought that was very unique on Lynch's part. One of the things that Lynch that movie came out in early 1997, and in the summer previous, Bill Pullman and Robert Loggia had saved the world from space aliens in Independence Day, if you remember. And of course, if you watch Lost Highway, Loggia and Pullman are both the villains in the movie. They're both scumbags, and I thought that was very clever. If you're familiar with David Lynch, the one thing he hates more than anything else is the summer blockbuster. So I thought it was very clever of Lynch that you just had Loggia and Pullman coming off of this massive summer blockbuster. Right. So of course Lynch cast them to play a bunch of scumbags in Lost Highway. It's essentially Lynch's way of giving the proverbial middle finger to the Hollywood blockbuster. And when you examine this, this is something that's more and more common in Hollywood than I initially thought. You'll find this with the Matrix sequel with Anthony Zerbe. You'll find it in the Star Wars movie, not the Phantom Menace, the other one, the Last Jet. No, not that one. The first one, Episode 7, the first of the new trilogies. What's that called? The Force Awakens. Yeah, The Force Awakens. You'll find it with the Max von Sydow figure in that. That's intentionally done. That's designed to bring to light two other Max von Sydow films. Those are a couple off the top of my head. But yeah, this is one of the techniques that these filmmakers use is the inserting of an actor or actress to sort of convey an esoteric thread or bring an esoteric thread into the most latest project from some past project. That's a very interesting study.
Definitely. Lost Highway has one of the best soundtracks ever. 9 Inch Nails and all kinds of great stuff on it.
Yeah.
And that's a good one.
David Lynch uses music very specifically. I mean, music is like that's like one of the tapestries that he uses. It's like if you look down his credits, he's always like either the sound engineer or he is the assistant to the sound engineer. I mean, it's like he's that specific, and he uses sound to him. It's just like his visual edits. He uses sound very much the same way. So his there everything in his movies and his shows is intentional. Everything is there, and it's multi-layered, and it's not sequential necessarily in a linear fashion. So you really have to exercise your observation at multiple levels. He's very complex.
Yeah, the use of music is definitely one of these things that these makers of these films will play around with, and especially using a piece of music in one movie. A lot of times we'll hear it in another movie in a situation that's similar to the earlier one. You'll find that from time to time. And again, when you talk about these themes in films, again, it's a wide variety of techniques that these filmmakers use. Again, it's not just like a symbol hanging on a wall. It can be that, but I mean, you always have to look towards the actors, the costuming, can play a role in this. The music, as you said, can play a role. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into these movies that can convey an esoteric theme or an undercurrent. No question about it.
What's some of the occult themes in Mulholland Drive and Gnostic stuff? Do you recall? I know a lot of his movies, I like them, but a lot of them I'm usually like, what the hell is happening? Like, what was the one, Island Empire or something? Yeah. I don't know what the hell that was.
That's the one I meant. That was the one I've never seen. That's one of the few Lynch ones I've never seen is Inland Empire. Yeah, I mean, well, when you watch like Mulholland Drive, the thing that's very unique about that movie is, off the top of my head, it's been a while since I've seen it. It's a movie I took on, I think, in Cinema Symbolism 2, is if you pay attention to that, everything that happens in the dream world happens again in the real world, only it's slightly twisted. And I thought that was unique. And again, a lot, whenever you're dealing with the false reality or the dream world, you're inherently dealing with a Gnostic theme, because that's one of the chief tenets of Gnosticism is the false reality. So, and again, this is something that you'll find in a lot of Lynch films. So yeah, I mean, he's one that without question, whenever I'm taking on a Lynch movie, those are heavy lifting, to say the least.
Yeah, and Elephant Man, and there's so many. Dune. I love Dune. I don't think he likes it, does he? I loved it.
Well, he didn't have complete creative control over that movie, so he's not going to be as fond of it, obviously.
The Dune movie that he made is one of the best examples in film of the Joseph Campbell monomyth that you'll find in Star Wars and many other films, and many other these legendary films that figure the Christ-like figure, Luke Skywalker, Neo Anderson, Frodo Baggins, the Muad'Dib character in Dune, and the entire Dune plot line, storyline really follows the Joseph Campbell monomyth really, really well. In fact, it's one of the best movies, I think, if you just want to read Hero with a Thousand Faces, and then you want to see these elements brought to life. By all means, check out the David Lynch Dune movie, because they're all right there.
I have a lot of those Joseph Campbell documentaries and stuff. I think there's like a series or something. I need to dig those out. It's been a while, but those are really good for sure. And I know in the newer Twin Peaks, when the little boy dies by a car and the being of light or whatever comes out, that hit me, because I've had weird being of light experiences in my paranormal stuff after surviving testicular cancer. Had some being of light sightings, and I know in that Twin Peaks episode, that kid gets hit, and then it just shows like this ascending light body to the heavens. That was like, wow.
Yeah,
know there's
I
one.
did
Yeah,
the I took on the on with Twin Peaks. I've done both series. I've done the TV show. I did Fire Walk with Me, and I did the new show that aired on Showtime about 5 years ago, or whatever it was, 6 years ago.
yeah,
But it's been a while since I've seen them. But again, they have a lot going on in them. I mean, there's a lot going on in Twin Peaks. The one, I mean, the one thing that is a heavy influence on that, just that I remembered off the top of my head, was when you're dealing with the Twin Peaks, at least the original TV show, that deals a lot with alchemy, the idea of the union of opposites, the purification of the soul. If you're familiar with the finality of the alchemical process, it's what's known as the rubido. That's the red phase. That's the completion. That's when the archetype is finalized in Jungian psychology, and of course you have that in Twin Peaks with the Black Lodge, the White Lodge, and then the Red Room, and then you get a lot of Madame Blavatsky in that. Uh,
Yeah.
the dweller on the threshold. That whole thing comes straight out of the world of theosophy. With Blavatsky. So that's without question a clear influence upon Lynch, at least in Twin Peaks. So yeah, I mean, again, it's very alchemical, it's very occult. A lot of his stuff, if you pay attention to it and you look at it, it's if you look at it as a a body of work, like if you look at Kubrick, for instance,
Mhm.
what's the one theme that always runs through Kubrick's movies? I mean, it's the toilet. I mean, it's the bathroom. If you look at Lynch, it's doubles. I mean, he's always playing around with doubles,
Right.
duality,
Right.
twin peaks. I mean, there's always this duality going on in his work. And again, when you look at that, again, this is sort of a Gnostic theme of the higher and lower self, things like that.
what's up with some of this Kubrick stuff? I see they have like a little interview of him, and it's like on BitChute or something, but it says it's him talking about he helped make the moon landing. That's all crap, isn't it? There ain't any truth to that, is there? Like they had a video. It's like him supposed to be really talking about him admitting this. I didn't get to watch it. I just figured it wasn't true, but there's no truth to
Well,
that. Is there?
he worked for NASA. He worked for NASA. So the idea that the idea is the theory behind this is that they actually went to the moon, but they couldn't film there. And this is very interesting because there's a lot of smoke to this. This comes from the movie The Shining, where the little boy is wearing the Apollo 11 sweatshirt and stands up. It looks like a rocket launch, and then he goes to room 237, which Kubrick had changed from the novel. And one of the reasons he changed it was in the late 1970s, the distance from the moon to the Earth was 237,000 miles. So the idea is the little boy with the Apollo 11 sweater goes to room 237. This is symbolizing him going to the moon. This is actually not as far-fetched as it may sound, because the theory is that the government wanted Kubrick. They could go to the moon, but they couldn't film there. So they retained Kubrick to film the footage of the guy popping around, on a soundstage, faking the moon landing. And this was based on his work on Strangelove in 2001. And the theory is that the government hired him to, stage film this footage, this phony moon landing footage. They actually went, but they couldn't film it. And what makes this so unique, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, is when it came time to film the movie before The Shining, the movie he made was Barry Lyndon, and
Yeah.
he actually
That's a good one.
uses NASA technology to film that movie. And this was because he worked for NASA, apparently. I mean, he was known to them. He wanted to film scenes that were strictly lit by candlelight, and you can't do it. It's too dark. NASA had developed a lens that, with a slight adjustment to it here or there, you could do it. And Kubrick had just found this out and went to NASA, and sure enough, they gave him the lenses. And this was probably, he was known to them, and this was probably like, hey, thanks for filming the moon landing. Here, you want some lenses? Yeah, go ahead. And what makes this even more peculiar, and this is something that Kubrick would have done, is and this is something I was just talking about with the casting, to convey certain things and certain themes. If you're Kubrick and you're in The Shining, what was the movie that came out a few years earlier? It came out about 8 years earlier, where, believe it or not, the guy goes into the top secret government lab and stumbles upon them filming the moon landing. And it's the James Bond movie Diamonds Are Forever, which came out in '71. And if you watch that, um, there's a scene in there where Connery as Bond he's in the Nevada desert, and he stumbles obviously into what is meant to be Area 51, and he's snooping around, and lo and behold, he winds up in a studio where they're faking the moon landing, where they got the guys jumping around on the soundstage, and they're filming the moon landing.
Yeah.
So the next question is, well, wouldn't Kubrick want to somehow salute this movie or pay homage to Diamonds Are Forever? So the question then becomes: does Kubrick in The Shining pay homage or salute James Bond in any way, shape, or form? And the answer is yes. And the way he does it is very subtle. If you remember in The Shining, the guy who hires Jack Torrance is Stuart Ullman, who is played by an actor named Barry Nelson. Believe it or not, Barry Nelson was the first actor to play James Bond. It was not Sean Connery. Barry Nelson actually played 007 in a television movie that was on a TV show called Climax, and he played James Bond in a made-for-TV movie which was based on Fleming's Casino Royale. And I'm absolutely convinced 100% that Barry Nelson's placement in The Shining is an homage to Diamonds Are Forever and James Bond. And this is, again, Kubrick with a wink and a nod, letting everyone know that he is, in fact, the person who filmed the moon landing.
I know there's a lot of stuff lately about The Shining, about how, I guess, like in the book, the guy's not, they like they're trying to paint the main character as being more, I don't know, sinister than he is. Like, I guess in the book and the other there was another movie series where he's a little bit more innocent, but trying to bring up stuff that there's intermingled stuff about abusing children in it. Like, there's some weird scene where someone's dressed up like a bear and a little kid. Like, I don't know, I couldn't read it all, but I know there's new crap about The Shining that they're trying to stifle the flames with, which is probably BS, but I saw it in a lot of articles lately.
Well, the one thing that's irrefutable going on inside that movie is the repetition. I break this all down in the one movie book that I did. Everything in that movie is doubles and repeating. Everything. It's just astounding the amount of effort that Kubrick went into to repeat things and to present doubles and sets of twos in that movie. It's all over the place. And ultimately, the reason why Kubrick does that is to convey that the Overlook is an Ouroboros. It's a snake biting its tail. It's an endless cycle of reincarnation and repetition. The whole thing with this thing with The Shining, with the child abuse, stems from an inside joke, which I'm convinced I've figured out the reason for it is, and it stems from when Jack Torrance arrives at the Overlook. He is sitting there, and he is reading a Playgirl magazine, and the idea is that Jack Torrance is a homosexual, and that somehow he's abusing his son. I don't believe that to be the case, and if I know Kubrick like I think I do, the one movie that Kubrick disowned was Spartacus, which was a movie that he made with Kurt Russell. And there was numerous scenes in that movie, most famously the snails and oyster scene with Sir Laurence Olivier and Tony Curtis, which is this overtly homoerotic scene where Tony Curtis is giving Sir Laurence Olivier a bath, and Olivier is trying to come on to him. And the movie, Kubrick disowned the movie. The movie was one of the movies that was butchered. The studio wound up cutting it out. And I am absolutely convinced that this little thing with Jack Torrance reading the Playgirl is an homage, is again a little wink and a nod back to Spartacus. And this is something he's done before. Kubrick does this in Lolita with the Peter Sellers character of Quilty when he encounters the James Mason character what's his name? I forget his name right now. It's the name that repeats. It's the same first. His forename is the same as his last name. The Quilty character, which is Sellers, when he meets James Mason, he says, "Oh, what are you, Spartacus or something?" So we know that Kubrick has poked fun at this movie before that he made, and I'm convinced that he does this again in The Shining. And this idea of Torrance reading Playgirl is a reference to this homoerotic scene between Olivier and Curtis from Spartacus that was eventually wound up on the cutting room floor. God, what's the name of James Mason's character? Oh, this is going to drive me crazy. I can't remember it. But anyway, that's what I believe is going on with that. There's no evidence in the book whatsoever that the Jack Torrance character is a homosexual or a child abuser. I mean, excuse me, or a pedophile. He does abuse the child. I mean, because remember, he's abusive with the kid. But there's no evidence that there's pedophilia or anything like that.
I never picked that up when I saw it before I heard that
No,
stuff.
that's what I got out of it at any rate.
Yeah. So what's up with the Sergio Leone westerns? That's something we don't really get to talk about too much on here. Those are classics. So there's some Roman Catholicism, symbolism. Like what's in that?
Yeah, absolutely. The films of Leone, the spaghetti westerns, especially the Dollars trilogy, I mean, are what I would describe as occult Roman Catholic films. Leone was a Catholic, and when you watch them, I mean, you're going to see, biblical themes, all over the place in these things. I mean, in the first one, I mean, the best way for me to describe it is when you watch the first two. What is it, for a fistful of dollars and a few dollars more? These are the ones where he kind of plays around with it, where he's like experimenting with it, where you have the Christ figure is clearly the Clint Eastwood character, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed sun god figure. I mean, who winds up uniting, what is it, Jesus and Marie with the husband, Jesus and Mary, the Madonna and Child character. Of course, in the Fistful of Dollars, he's
so good. I have them on Blu-ray. They're so good. I've seen them like 10 times or more.
If you watch A Fistful of Dollars, he's killed and resurrected. He goes into the crypt at the end. The subterranean crypt, and then comes out. But then when you get to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, this is where Leone really hits his stride with this, where clearly, you kind of have this retelling of the Bible where the Angel Eyes character, the Lee Van Cleef, is clearly the devil in black. The Blondie character is clearly Christ. Again, the blue-eyed, blonde-haired, solar god figure. And the ugly character, this would be Eli Wallach, is humankind, who is, of course, in a state of ugliness after the fall from Eden. And the whole movie is just that. It's God and the devil vying for the soul of humankind. Who's the ugly going to side with? Is he going to side with the Lee Van Cleef character? Is he going to ultimately side with the Clint Eastwood character? And if you watch it, with biblical lenses, as a retelling of the Bible, this God versus the devil motif, it becomes a little more clear. If you got the eye for it, there's another Roman Catholic filmmaker named Martin Scorsese who uses the template that Leone lays out in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and he puts it in one of his movies. And if you ever watch 2002, I believe it is, the Gangs in New York movie by Scorsese, you will see the exact same sort of themes going on, where clearly the Leonardo DiCaprio character is the Christ figure who is sent to cast out the devil from paradise. Remember, they're trying to get rid of Bill the Butcher, who's clearly the devil, who hangs out in Satan's circus. And they want to cast him in paradise, Paradise Square. You'll see these exact same sort of biblical esoteric themes going on in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, in the spaghetti westerns of Leone. And again, you'll see them transferred into the movies, specifically the Gangs of New York film, which is very good, by the way. by
Scorsese.
by Scorsese, and I like it. What is it? The Leonardo DiCaprio character is named Amsterdam. I mean, of course, that's the original name of New York City was New Amsterdam.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, so very, 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 very esoteric. Very
Looking forward to Killers of the Flower Moon. That looks like it's going to be really good. I know it's a true story. I have the book. I just haven't read the book yet. But Scorsese's next movie, Killers of the Flower Moon. They just released the trailer
it's
for it.
about the betrayal of the Osage Nation.
Yeah,
I'll
have to check it out. Until it's released.
But yeah, Robert, if you want to take your little 5-minute break, you can, and we'll come back for about 25 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I'll be back in about 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, watch that Killers of the Flower Moon trailer. They just released it.
Okay. I'll be back in. Let me do a couple things. I'll be back in like 5 minutes or so.
All righty.
All right.
All right, everybody. Listening on at Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans. And who's coming up next? Let me see. I always forget to do the dang background.
The dang background.
It's dumb because when you do it, it'll go on everybody else's show at the same time. So there it goes. There it is. You still can't really see it, but at least it's not someone else's show. But
how's the website?
Gosh, just want to put it out of its misery at this point. It's like he's working on it, but he's got some health trouble, and so it's taking longer. And I know we just did something with the emails because GoDaddy tries to charge you for emails. So we just moved those somewhere and made new ones. So that's good. So we don't have to pay GoDaddy for stupid emails. Emails they try to send admin stuff to, and then they want you to pay for said email. It's like, God. But you're supposedly supposed to upload the older site to this. I don't know. It's just taking forever. But I don't know. I can't do any of it. So Greg's doing it. I mean, I'm an idiot at it, so I don't even try. But let me see. June 2nd, Samuel Chong, that's Jay. Corey Thomas Hutchison, that's Jay. Jim Saylor, that's Jay. And June 23rd, Sally Crow. June 30th, Mike Hacker. I'm still working on July 7th. July 14th, Augie Noss. And July 21st, Jeffrey Shanks. That's a friend of mine that's like an archaeologist dude. So just doing the summer. And but yeah, that Star Trek, I watched it. That was good. Pretty good. Looking forward to the next one.
I told you that it was.
I've had several people tell me that it was good.
It's fun. It's kind of swashbuckling. You know what I mean?
The fairy realm, the fairy tale.
Yeah, it's. I like it a lot. I think that the guy who plays Pike is great.
Anson Mount, I think's his name.
Yeah, I think he's great.
He does a good job. So Kirk seems kind of weird. I don't know if he seems quirky, does he? I mean, a little.
Well, it's when he was young, so.
Yeah. He's got like a porno mustache. I don't remember if he had a mustache.
No, actually, if you remember,
I made a joke about it.
If you remember, the first Kirk that's on there is Samuel Kirk, so that's James T. Kirk's brother. He's the guy with the mustache.
Oh, okay.
The James T. Kirk shows up later.
What's up with the Romulans? They like aced that dude. He was just trying to like be peaceful, and they aced.
Well, this is before. This is like at the beginning. I mean, if you remember the original series, I mean, this is like taking place before the original series. So if you remember the original series, the Romulans were like enemies. I mean, they were like mysterious, crazy people.
Why did they get at war with us? The humans, anyway.
Well, they were just suspicious of everybody. They've always been suspicious.
Yeah.
And Picard has talked about that a little bit.
Hmm.
You know, the series Picard has talked a little bit about why the Romulans are suspicious. And then in the last season of Star Trek Discovery, which is way in the future at this point, like way in the future, you find out that the Romulans and the Vulcans finally do get back together, and they change the name of they're not living on Vulcan anymore. They've changed the name of the planet to Navarre. And
So they are Vulcans?
well, they're related. They were related species at one point, and then they split off. So in Star Trek Discovery, in the future, because if you remember in the New Generation, I think is it New Generation, yeah, or in the movies. In the movies, Spock decides that he's going to try to unify the Romulans and the Romulans, not the Romulans and the Vulcans. And so he sets out to do that. Well, in the future, you find out that he succeeded in that process eventually. I mean, it happened after his death, but so what ends up happening is that when they encounter the Navarians, which is kind of what they are now, it's kind of an interesting mix between Vulcan and Romulan, in the sense that their ruling council is composed of both of Romulans and Vulcans. So they have to it's almost like they have to take all these different views into account, because the Romulans are not necessarily, they're not necessarily on that path of logic that Vulcans are known for. So it's this interesting sort of balancing act that is occurring on Navarre. It's kind of fascinating.
It's fascinating, for sure.
It's fascinating.
It's logical. All right, Robert, welcome back. We Star Trek nerded out for a second. We got you back. So what are you looking forward to that's coming out, or what have you seen recently that has this stuff in it? Symbolism.
Right. Well, I guess the one thing that really piqued my interest was the movie we were talking about earlier, was the Joker 2 movie. That I kind of, it's not out for a while, which is somewhat disappointing, because I really don't want to release the new book until after I see that. This is what happened to me last time.
Was Lady Gaga worry you? That was me a little, but I mean, she seems to be a good actress from what I know. She was in some stuff.
And you got, it's supposed to be a musical, so that should make it interesting. And I think if you're going to do singing in it, I think you got a good person with Lady Gaga in it. So that should certainly be different at any rate. And I haven't seen it yet, but I was a big fan of his first two movies, and that's Ari Aster. I like Midsommar.
I was about to mention Hereditary.
Yeah, Hereditary is fantastic.
Weird.
He did a movie called Beau Is Not Afraid with Joaquin Phoenix.
I want to see that.
Yeah, and I kind of want to see that as well. Yeah, that's sort of some of the stuff.
That Hereditary, that thing is creepy as hell. When that little girl croaks from the pole, and just the way the little clicking noise and all that, it's terrifying. And I'm pretty jaded. I grew up with Freddy Krueger and on my wall, and which is always weird to me that people idolize Freddy Krueger like a pedo, so that's just weird anyway. But those movies are really good. He's definitely evil and disgusting. But like with Jason on my door and Aliens, from Sigourney Weaver, so I'm kind of jaded. But that movie Hereditary, especially the end, that was some crazy shit. That was crazy. And I'm still trying to figure out exactly what happened, but it was crazy as hell, demonic for sure. They're complex movies, and they somewhat overlap. There's like
a lot
it
of
resurrected a dark demonic deity of really into it was crazy for sure.
Well, if you pay attention to it, there's a lot of exorcist symbolism, and that would make sense because the Hereditary is about demonic possession. So there's a lot. If watch The Exorcist and watch Hereditary, you're going to see a lot of parallels with some of the scenery, the attic, stuff like that. There's a lot of foreshadowing if you pay attention to it. Things missing their heads and stuff, and of course, this is what happens at the end. The one thing that's sort of unique is I get asked about these all the time on shows, and I always found them to be two very, very dark movies. And I always kind of, those are movies to me. It's like, the devil is lurking in the celluloid. And the one thing that's very unique is in Hereditary, the main demon in that it's a real demon. It's called Payman. If you got a copy of the Ars Goetia, the Key of Solomon, the Lesser Key, that is, Payman is actually the 9th demon identified. Well, if you watch Midsommar, you will notice that movie is literally blanketed in the number 9. That's all it is the number 9. Now, the number 9 is critical within Norse mythology. It's one of the main numbers in Norse mythology, and of course, it ties into that. But you can't help but wonder also, is the number 9 somehow trying to evoke this demon Payman and somehow put him in the movie Midsommar? I kind of got that vibe from it.
Midsummer, yeah, it was good, but it's one of those, like, do I really want to watch that one again? Like the people falling from the cliffs because they're old. That was a rough watch. But it was good. He's a good filmmaker. And Beau is Afraid with Joaquin Phoenix, I'm definitely going to see it, but I'm expecting the same, psychologically traumatizing stuff.
Take a look. Those movies, the Midsommar comes out of a book called The Golden Bough by J.G. Frazier. And there's another movie called The Wicker Man that also comes out of that. Yeah. And if you ever watch The Wicker Man, you're going to see a lot. The Wicker Man, the original came out, I think it's 1973 or so.
Right.
And, if you watch that, you're going to see a lot of Midsommar in that.
Definitely want to see Beau is Afraid, but the only way to see it, I think, is theaters right now until it hits some kind of streaming situation. I want to see the new Guardians of the Galaxy. Those are always good. And definitely looking forward to some of the DC stuff. They got that James Gunn guy over there now in DC, and I know they're planning a lot of different things. One of the big ones that I really want to see is they're doing Creature Commandos, and that's an old comic from Weird Tales where Frankenstein and Dracula are like World War II government secret soldiers and have to go kill Nazis. So that's going to be a good one. Creature Commandos.
Go kill Nazis.
Yeah, and I know they're doing an animated situation of that. But anything else coming up that you can think of? I've seen some stuff recently, but now my mind's going blank.
No, I can't think of anything. Until I actually see the movie, I really can't do an analysis on a trailer or anything because, a lot of times it's just not enough information, and a lot of times, inevitably there'll be a scene or something in the trailer that doesn't make it into the movie. So, I don't do any sort of analysis on trailers. I have to see the whole movie, and believe me when I tell you, I have to see it more than once to really, really be able to start pinning this stuff down. And again, it's time consuming and it's complex because inevitably you kind of skip around in the movie. You gotta, keep an eye on stuff that's happening early on, could have something meaning later on. It's a difficult study. Some things stand out more than others, but you take a movie like Crimson Peak, for instance, Guillermo del Toro, I don't think you can properly analyze that movie unless you have it on Blu-ray, just because of the amount of stuff going on in it.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. I've seen that. I saw his Cabinet of Curiosities. That was really good. He did a show on Netflix. I don't know if you got to see that, but different episodes. But in it, God, one of the guys from Warner Brother were out there. I always forget his name. Tim Blake Nelson. There's one particular episode in it where he buys storage buildings, and it turns out that the storage building has Nazi demonic artifacts in it. And that was a Guillermo del Toro show on Netflix, Cabinet of Curiosities, if you want to check it out sometime. It's really good. It's kind of like Tales from the Crypt or something like that.
Yeah.
Twilight Zone. Different episodes.
Yeah, I know. I
Def-
haven't seen it, so
it's definitely good. One of my big ones is Excalibur. I could watch that movie a million times. And I know there's all kinds of symbolism in that. You know, the John Boorman Excalibur movie. Uh, that one is just something about it. I've seen it so many times, and nothing else is, I don't think, come close to touching King Arthur on a cinema scale that I know of on that kind of a level. It's definitely a cult classic for sure. It's strange that Boorman did Deliverance. Like, he went from Deliverance to a King Arthur movie. Big journey for sure with that. The Warriors. Who? I know you mentioned that movie that has Gnostic overtones, but The Warriors, is that Walter Hill?
yeah, that's right.
Walter Hill.
Well, again, and the Borman Excalibur movie, that's a very good film. That's the Arthurian tale is again the Zodiac is the sun in the Zodiac, where King Arthur is the sun. The Knights of the Round Table. The Round Table is the wheel of the Zodiac. The different knights are the different houses. And if you watch Borman's Excalibur, the one thing I like about it is that is without question one of the best movies to see the solar, allegory as where King Arthur personifies the sun. That's one of the best ones without question.
It is
Um,
great.
and that's a very good movie. I always liked Excalibur.
Love it. Watch it right now. It's really good. But what's up with the Warriors? What kind of stuff? Walter Hill's very interesting. Did he do? He did Deadwood, didn't he? The series on HBO. He did another 48 hours. 48 hours. Did a lot of different stuff. There's one I just saw by him, a western, Dead for a Dollar. Has William Dafoe and one of the guys that's always in Quentin Tarantino movies. I forget his name right now. Christopher Waltz. Yeah. But $1 for the Dead. This is pretty good new Walter Hill Western if you haven't seen that. But what do you remember about the Warriors?
Yeah, well, this is a movie that again has a definitive Gnostic overtone, where it's sort of the rejection of the material world for enlightenment and for spiritual growth. It's you have to be sort of familiar with the tenets of Gnosticism, but clearly you have the warrior characters. They go to this meeting and then they have to battle their way back to get to Coney Island, and you can definitely look at the different gangs they're fighting as sort of uh, how can I describe it? It's like levels of spiritual purification. If you're familiar with the world of Hermeticism and Kabbalah, this is what this involves with these levels that you have to undergo and pass, and you're tested. If you ever watch the movie, not the TV show, but if you watch the movie Snowpiercer, it's the same sort of thing where all the train cars are different levels of testing. And it's the same thing with the gangs. It's like they're different levels. And then, of course, you have the name of the main gang leader is Swan. And again, if you're familiar with the occult and the mystery tradition, the swan denotes someone who is seeking gnosis, who is being initiated into the mystery tradition. It's a very interesting name to give to him. And of course, you have the warriors. You have again this play on duality. I mean, they're warriors, so they're warlike. And then you have the introduction of the sacred feminine character, the Sophia character. And of course, what's her name? Well, she's Mercy. She's the polar opposite. She's Mercy, their war. So that's again a Gnostic theme of duality, of yin and yang, coincidentia oppositorum, the union of opposites. And then of course when they finally get back to Coney Island, they realize this is just nonsense. I mean, they think he's standing there and he says, this is what we battled, all night to get home to. I mean, it's just this dilapidated, ghetto essentially. And of course, the sun is rising at the time, light, enlightenment. And it's the sort of Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz sort of Gnostic quest where the characters are, going on this journey ultimately to know themselves. And at the end of the Warriors, they really do have this sort of this Gnostic epiphany where they realize that, what they've been fighting for, this gang banging for the, being entrapped in this material world, as it were, is getting them nowhere. So they sort of, abandon it and kind of walk away from it, and you get the impression that there's, they've been taken off the one path of materialism and put on another path of sort of a spiritual journey. So I thought The Warriors, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. I absolutely loved it. But it's definitely, when I think about it and when I watch it, I'm always kind of sitting there with sort of Alice in Wonderland and Wizard of Oz sort of in the back of my head, which sort of play on these exact same sort of Gnostic, Enlightenment, mystery religion themes.
Yeah, I definitely need to see that again. It's been a while. I saw it a long time ago. The movie I was talking about by Walter Hill that just came out in 2022, Dead for a Dollar. Christopher Waltz and William Dafoe. It's a Western. It's not bad. I liked it. And I know it's been a while since he's made anything. Been a good long while for sure. So what's up with these Simpsons episodes? Some of those are just getting like damn right prophetic weird. Like, is the government feeding the Simpsons guy stuff? Like, I don't know, but it gets weird. There's definitely some weird situations where they kind of prophesy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, The Simpsons. I guess the most creepy one is, without question, the 9/11 episode with I think it's called Homer Simpson versus New York City. What makes this so creepy and eerie is, and this is something I get into in the book, is if you look at some of the movies that predict 9/11, and you could throw The Simpsons in there, it's a countdown almost. And what I mean by that is, I think the Simpsons episode aired like on September 10th, in like 1996, and then you move ahead a year or two. You have Fight Club that came out like on September 9th. I mean, it's all right around that same time period. I will say this. I mean, there's a lot of examples in The Simpsons. I'll leave it at this. If you want to see a TV show predicting something, take a look at there's some episodes in a show called Route 66 that aired in the early 60s that predicts the Kennedy assassination. And I can tell you point blank, this show makes The Simpsons look like child's play. Some of the stuff that's going on in this.
It's called Route 66.
Route 66. And there's about 4 or 5 episodes in there that predict the Kennedy assassination that is just startling. And what makes it even more disturbing is there's one in particular. And again, when you watch this episode, it's not only does it get Kennedy, but it ties into the 9/11 stuff as well. And it's truly uncanny. I've quite honestly never seen anything like it.
Is it 1960 to 1964? Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm going to save it and look at it.
There is an episode. There is an episode out there. It's called "I'm Here to Kill a King," or "I'm Here to Kill the King," and it predicts the Kennedy assassination. It predicts the whole thing. And what makes it particularly creepy is the show was scheduled to air on November 22nd, 1963, and it never aired. But if you watch that episode, it is absolutely uncanny how it predicts the Kennedy assassination.
And I know with the Simpsons episode, the one I see a lot going around is, I know they have an episode where Trump croaks in it.
That's fake. The Trump episode came after the stuff.
So he didn't croak in it, or it was just another?
There's a Trump episode where he comes down the escalator. That all came after he did it. That one doesn't count. Now there's stuff out there that predicts Trump that's uncanny, but you can exclude the Simpsons from it.
The Matrix. I didn't get to see the newest Matrix. There was a new one. I missed that one.
Don't bother. It's awful.
Is it?
Yeah, it's not very good.
Yeah,
I didn't like it at all.
His passport expires on 9/11. They always put weird little strange things in them for sure.
Yeah, well, the passport, not only does it expire on 9/11, it expires on 9/11/01, which is an uncanny date to say the least, especially when you're dealing with a movie that has to do with sort of the end of an era, the awakening to consciousness. And again, this is sort of one of the things that I've said, and I stand by, is the whole 9/11 thing was sort of this uh, heralding of this new age of Aquarius, or the age of Horus, which was what Crowley talked about. And again, what makes this particularly disturbing is when you research it, the Crowley influence on this is just remarkable. I mean, it's just astounding.
We got like 10 minutes. One that is a good one, From Hell. I know that's based on an Alan Moore graphic novel, but that's got a lot of weirdness in it, from a Johnny Depp and Jack the Ripper. And it's definitely a good one I haven't seen in a while. But From Hell, what's there's Freemasonry stuff in it as well?
Yeah, I mean, this was a story that is based on the whole notion that the Freemasons were behind the Jack the Ripper murders. One of the things that is interesting about all this is, they're always pointing to. It's an interesting bedtime story, but one of the things that's always excised out of this, that it's not in From Hell, is the most interesting aspect of it all is the whole thing with Nicholas Hawksmoor and his churches. That a couple of I think one or two of the murders occurred around a Hawksmoor church, and he was a Freemason, and he constructed these series of churches in and around London that are, many people, even architects, describe as completely demonic. And I think a couple of the Ripper murders occurred near there. And the idea was that the Ripper murder was a sacrifice to, what was the union of opposites, the masculine and the feminine being united, which was interesting. But yeah, I get into I believe it's in one of the movie books I touch on From Hell off the top of my head, but I can't recall right now.
I know there's some interesting stuff that tries to tie H.H. Holmes to Jack the Ripper from Jeff Mudgett. I don't know if any of it's true, but it's pretty weird.
The Ripper, the best Ripper suspect, the guy who most likely was Jack the Ripper, was a Polish immigrant named Aaron Kosminski. This is the guy who all the police inspectors thought was Jack the Ripper, and what makes him pretty much, he was a psychopath. He hated women. I mean, he's there at the time, and right after I think the last murder, the Mary Kelly murder, Kaminsky was arrested and was placed in an insane asylum for the rest of his life, where he died. And shortly thereafter, I mean, this would have probably been in November, maybe December of 1888, the entire Whitechapel Metropolitan Police Force was told to stand down on the Ripper murders, was basically told, don't worry about it anymore. And there were no more Ripper murders. And the idea was they knew that they had their man. They knew that Kosminski was, in fact, Jack the Ripper. So, he's always, in my eyes, he's probably the best candidate for it. But we don't know for certain, of course.
Yeah. There's a weird movie, Time After Time, 1979. H.G. Wells pursues Jack the Ripper to the 20th century with Malcolm McDowell. That's a weird one I haven't seen in a while. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one, but it's definitely one worth seeing, called Time After Time.
I've seen it, but it's been a while since I've watched it.
It's a weird one. Weird one. Definitely a weird one. So when can we expect your next book, and what's your website? And so I'll give you some info.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on the Church of Mabus. It was my pleasure to be here tonight. If you're interested in me and my books, my website is my name. My name is Robert W. Sullivan IV. So my website is just that. It's www.robertwsullivan.iv.com, www.robertwsullivaniv.com. There are links there to buy the books. There are, the books are available in all the major retailer sellers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Book of the Million. You can get the print or the ebook. And I'm working on some revised editions of some of my earlier works. They'll probably be out in the next year or two, maybe, over time. It's a bit arduous. I'm working on Symbolism 4 right now, but I can tell you that book won't come out until after the Joker 2 movie is out. So we're probably looking at somewhere in like 2025 on that one, would be my best estimate.
Another one with Joaquin Phoenix, Napoleon by Ridley Scott. I'm looking forward to that. That should be interesting. When Joaquin Phoenix is Napoleon. I saw a picture.
Yeah, no, you have to take a look at that. Of course, he was in the one a few years ago with Mary Magdalene. And of course, this is again another great example of casting. I mean, Mary Magdalene is, of course, Pisces, the fish. I believe her number is in Greek gematria is 157, which has to do with the Vesica Pisces and Archimedes. And if you're ever familiar with Mary Magdalene, I mean, and you see the Kabbalistic artist, he's always in the fish netting because she's Pisces. She's like Christ. She's Pisces the fish. And in that movie with Mary Magdalene, this was where Mara played her. Joaquin Phoenix played Jesus, and of course, I mean, what a name of an actor to play Jesus. I mean, Phoenix, the bird that dies and resurrects, and of course, Joaquin is the name of the father of the Virgin Mary. So a very, very unique use of casting for Joaquin Phoenix in the Christ movie.
Yeah, I meant to see that, but I didn't get to it. I'll have to see it sometime. One that comes to mind, Scorsese's Last Temptation of Christ. That's a weird trip for sure.
Yeah.
It caused a lot of controversy. But yeah, it's been great having you on. We'll get you on again sometime. Keep us in the loop on the future book for sure. And we appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you again, guys, for having me on Church of Mabus. It was my pleasure to be here. And absolutely, we'll do it again when the new book comes out.
All righty. Take care, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We got about, 25 minutes. Wham's going to tell us stuff for 25 minutes.
Actually, I was going to go see if I could go down and get a drink of water. No, actually, I've got some tea right here.
Too.
I've got some tea right here.
I'll sing while you're gone. Sing a little song.
Sing a little song, huh?
Froggy went a courting and he did fine. That's what my dad used to sing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, my dad. Good old dad. My dad was like this macho, strong dude that you were just afraid to be around and you do something to hit you. That was my dad. One time at school, I'm remembering this, there were some kids that were like blocking the road, like the big bully jerk-off kids, and he went through there and they were fighting or something. He got out and threw them everywhere. And then I heard him talk about it in school, and I was like hiding that it was my dad because they'd get me. Like these big, just monsters.
So what do you mean he threw them? He just walked in and started flinging them?
Yeah, to get them out of the road, just like threw them everywhere. To get them out of the road, they're blocking the road when he was going to work. Like it was like a dirt road that goes to Connie's aluminum plant, and I guess they were fighting on it or something. But I'd already had some trouble with some of these kids. I threw a garbage can at one of them that kept picking on me. I actually quoted something from that Tim Burton, Jack Nicholson movie and threw a garbage can at a kid in 9th grade. but man, I've been trying to read a book lately. It seems hard. Like I have that Kalani, his first book. I started it sort of, but I don't know. It's like there's a block with everything I try to read. I read some comics, some Spider-Man. I don't know what's going on. I'm de-evolving.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of devolving too. I mean, it's I with my job now, I spend literally like 8 hours a day on the computer, doing stuff, and not the most interesting stuff, and a lot of times. And so when I get home, it's like I don't want to be on the computer at all. And I don't want to use my eyes very much. So I've had some trouble reading too, even though I've got like a pile of things I want to read. And so I've been listening to Audible books. That's what I've been doing.
Nice.
You know,
that's me. I see this stuff all day, read it on the computer. I guess I'm always reading crap for work. Definitely. I actually have some good audiobooks. Mike sent me some good ones, and I have some others on there too, a lot of horror ones, so I should try to listen to those. I want to hear that Dark Divide book. I think it's on there. I want to try to get it somehow about the David Cross Bigfoot movie that I saw. There's an actual book that it's from. That's actually on audible.com, I'm pretty sure. I wouldn't mind listening to that. I saw this dude. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Let me find his name. It's like Sunbow or something. He's like some Bigfoot guy. that hangs out with Kalani or something.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Sunbow. Let me find him. Bigfoot, Journey. I know he's just on this show, Journey, something. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Let me find it. A Message from Sasquatch with Sunbow True Brother. And he's like, I don't know, he hangs out with Kalani and knows him and stuff, but he has books on Amazon, but I think he's like French Canadian or something. Someone was saying something about his accent, but his name's, what's that? I guess he's in this movie from Small Town Monsters too. Sunbow True Brother.
Sunbow True Brother.
Yeah, what a name.
I thought you said Sunbro, and I was like,
Sunbro. What up, Sunbro? He
Sunbro.
looks like Jesus in this one thing I pulled up. But I don't know. Star Elder, this is stuff he talks about. I talked to this guy once and tried to get him on the show, but I don't know. He didn't say no, but I didn't, like he vanished or something. Star Elder, Sasquatch Descendants, Council of Vibration Community, Shamanic Way, Sunbow True Brother is a member of the Cree First Nations from Saskatchewan, Canada. Sunbow will talk about his journey as a medium to the elder, to the elder of a Sasquatch tribe known as Elder Camus. Based on his findings and experience, like he claims he's friends with Bigfoot. So maybe he is. I don't know.
Claims he's friends with Bigfoot.
He's friends with Bigfoot. I want to see a Bigfoot. I thought I saw one when I was a kid, but I don't think I did. Someone messed with my brain. The skater, me, and bully kid in the woods.
Yeah.
The police said it was spider monkeys, but they didn't know either. I drew a picture of Bigfoot on a stupid piece of paper. I don't even remember how old I was. It was pretty, like 6th grade or something. But I got in trouble in 6th grade for selling Garbage Pail Kids and pizza in school. For selling Garbage Pail Kids. I had to go to the office. I got in trouble for selling Garbage Pail Kids. I actually have a Garbage Pail Kids tarot. I need to check that out. A tarot of Garbage Pail Kids. It actually looks pretty good. But that was a weird movie they made about that a long time ago, like in the 80s or something. It was a Garbage Pail Kid movie, which is really, really an odd one. There's actually a book I have of the Mars attacks, all the old cards. They put it in like a hardcover book, but they also made one of Garbage Pail Kids where you just flip through it and see the different ones. The Mars attacks is pretty cool. Garbage Pail Kids is pretty cool, but it's definitely kind of gross. There's boogers and farting and stuff. So you got to make sure you're not eating while you look at the Garbage Pail Kids. But Mars attacks, those pretty weird. Those have been around since what, like the 60s or something? I don't know, a long time. The whole Mars attacks, like they were Topps cards first. And then, of course, Tim Burton made the movie. There's comics. But I haven't read the comics. So you haven't been watching anything else? Are you watching?
I've been watching documentaries. Just mostly because I can listen to those while I listen to them and watch them because I can listen to them at work. And then every now and then flip over and look at if there's a if the narrative sounds like there's a picture I need to look at, I'll flip and look at it really quick and then go back to listening to it. So it's hard for me to do that with stories because stories distract me too much. I get too involved with them, and then I have trouble working. So I've just been listening to documentaries, nature documentaries and some stuff on Netflix like the Waco American Apocalypse, which is about the Branch Davidian Church and the whole the attack on them, which I remember really well when that happened. And just that's I have been reading a couple of books, but they're mostly books that have to do with just sort of like my own spiritual practices, and they're not really anything that would be that interesting, I don't think, to anybody here. I have been. I did make a decision. My I had some relatives come and visit in April, and I didn't really want them to, but they came anyway. And um, they were bringing my mom along because it's probably like her last road trip, because she's getting old and she's kind of getting some early dementia, and so anyway, after my relatives came and left, I realized, I don't want anybody to have anything to do with my death in my family. I don't want any of them to be in a position to make any kind of decision about me at all.
Yeah.
So, I've started the process of putting together my death plan. So I went and talked because in New York it's very regulated. So I went and talked to a funeral director dude this week, and I'm looking into um, either natural burial, or if the infrastructure is created by the time I die. It is legal now in New York. It's just been made legal, but um, if I have the opportunity, and they can offer it as a service in New York, I want to be recomposted. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's a process where you take the body and you put it in this chamber, and in sort of an organic mix, and then you inoculate that mix, and it sits in kind of a regular temperature with regular circulating air, and they can reduce a human body to compost in like 30 days.
They plant you like a tree or something.
Yeah, and then you can use that compost any way you want. So that's
they
sort
send
of
it to someone.
you can, yeah. I mean, because it's compost. It's dirt.
There's some weird place around here. My mom was going to do it. I don't know if she still is. I think her husband did it. They ship you to some lab and like for medical stuff, and you croak, and then send back the ashes.
Oh,
like
well, it's like
medical experimentation or something.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
Creepy.
yeah. I mean, there's like if you
No way.
no, I mean, if you commit your body to science, if you want some of it back, then you have to designate how you want it back, because usually it's just medical waste, and they always cremate medical waste whether you want it back or not. That's just how they get rid of it, because of it's the fastest way to get rid of it. So
creepy.
You can make an arrangement if you've donated your body to science and various things are done to it, and then they cremate it. You can ask for some of those ashes back.
Do they like parade your naked body in front of a class and points at your penis?
Well, you're dead. It doesn't matter. You're not there.
I know.
You're not there anymore.
You don't
know that anybody's looking at your penis,
I forget what it was. It was one of those horror episodes. It might be a John Carpenter one where the guy's still like conscious in the body.
Yeah, he's
cutting him up and stuff. I don't remember which one. It might have been Body Bags, John Carpenter. It might have been something else. So. But John Carpenter still kicking. I wish he could make another movie, but he helps. He's still kicking. He plays video games and like some horror. He loves horror video games and makes some wild music. It's like 80 probably now or something. Thank you from our Facebook user. Said we had a great show. I like the movies you talked about. That's right. That's what we do. Got some movie nerd stuff going. Oh, that book, I found it on Audible. It's called Where Bigfoot Walks, Crossing the Dark Divide by Robert Michael Pyle, narrated by Adam Barr. The inspiration for the film The Dark Divide, starring David Cross and Deborah Messing, one of America's most esteemed natural history writers, takes to the hills in search of Bigfoot and finds the wildness within ourselves. Awarded a Guggenheim Fellowship to investigate the legends of Sasquatch, Yale-trained ecologist Dr. Robert Powell treks into the unprotected wilderness of the Dark Divide near Mount St. Helens, where he discovers both a giant fossil footprint and recent tracks. On the trail of what he thought was legend, he searches out Indians who tell him of an outcast tribe, the Seetiks, Seehtiks, who had not fully evolved into humans. A handful of open-minded biologists and anthropologists counter the tabloids' Pyle studies, while rogue Forest Service employees and loggers swear of a vast conspiracy to deep six true stories of unknown upright hominid apes among us. He attends Sasquatch Days, where he meets scientists, hunters, and others who have devoted their lives to the search, only to realize that these guys don't want to find Bigfoot, they want to be Bigfoot. Anyway, I'll listen to it one year. The movie was good. It's on Tubi for free if anybody wants to watch it. It's called The Dark Divide, but the book is Where Bigfoot Walks, Crossing the Dark Divide. But I thought this guy, what I read, he was like a nature dude, and then he had something happen, and then he started touring about it or talking about it, like at those conferences and stuff.
Right.
I always wonder why those conferences never put out DVDs, like all the UFO places do, or at least make it so you can watch it online somehow. I'd rather do that. I don't really want to go to them. I'd rather watch it at home. I don't want to go hang out with a bunch of Republican Bigfoot slaughterers. No thanks. But what do I have on? I have those Jacques Vallée books. Those French. The French. Mike gave me those. I have that trilogy. I might listen to those. I have the books, but I bet they're pretty neat to listen to for sure. I always like a good Vlad the Impaler historical novel. Those are hard to find, but there's some good ones out there for sure. There's one I was looking at recently. I have to dig it up. I forget the name of it. Who was the... Let me close all this crap off my window. Next week's guest. I forgot for a second. Samuel Chong. It's an Asian dude that claims aliens took him to another planet.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's from the same dude, Mark Eddy, who's been co-host before, has been hooking us up. So we'll hear what the guy has to say. It happens, you know. Sometimes they just pick you up. They brought him back, though, apparently. So all his plumbing must have been in order, because I hear they'll throw you back. They don't like your plumbing situation.
You don't like what?
Your plumbing, your reproductive stuff. Like, according to that UFO connection, missing 411, like he was trying to, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but there was a guy that said he got thrown back because he had a vasectomy and he was abducted, but they left him behind. And then they were saying all the other dudes who got taken they couldn't find were fine. They didn't have any reproductive problems. So that basically they're taking people to Andromeda and making them gimps.
I see.
Breeding them out. What's going on with Spock and his in Stranger Worlds? His wife, and then he's like kind of goo for the blonde chick. Like that seems like that's gonna escalate.
Well, you know, he's part human. You have to remember that he's half human.
Stranger Worlds. But I want to watch those old cartoons, the old animated ones that are like from the 70s that look like Ralph Bakshi or something.
Right.
Have you seen those, the old cartoon ones?
I've seen some of them. I haven't like haven't seen all of them, but I've seen some of them.
I found some crazy, weird stuff for Planet of the Apes. Like there was an old cartoon called Return of Planet of the Apes, and then there was even like a TV show that came on that was old, the Planet of the Apes. You can get, you'd be surprised what you can get off archive.org. Like there's, you download whole movies there, and basically the guy says if this is violating anything, let me know and I'll take it down. But most of it's just like old stuff that's hard to find. You'd be surprised. I found that book on there, that Project Unidentified,
Oh yeah.
uh, at archive.org. Someone PDF'd it. But there's been a lot of weird stuff. Like I saw Tarantino in an article talking about some Australian movies I watched. One called Next of Kin. It's like a Australian, what do they call it? Like Aussie exploitation or something. They're really weird. There's another one, Patrick, that I haven't seen it yet, but in Next to Kin, this lady like comes back to her house. It's kind of like a elderly care home, and it just gets weird as hell. It's an older movie, like 80s or early 90s, but he was just talking about some of the Australian uh, gems. And there's one called Patrick. I don't know if I've seen it yet. I have it. I saw it a long time ago. Just forgot. But like this guy wakes up in a. It's always like in a weird hospital, like in a hospital, and suddenly he has like crazy paranormal powers over the nurse, and he's like evil. And wakes up in his hospital bed. It's like telepathic weird powers that are not nice. But some weird. I know there's another one about a giant boar, Razorback, that was Australian. Like they actually have some decent movies from older out of there that are pretty weird. Like Tarantino likes the Australian flicks. He just said he's doing his last movie ever. They might do a TV show, but The Critic is supposed to be about some critic that writes for Porn Mag.
Oh
It's
yeah.
based on a true person. Uh, that I guess bothered him when he was doing movies or something. Let me see who else is coming up. Where is it? Let's see. Schedule. Samuel Chong, Corey Thomas Hutchison, that's a North American folklore stuff. Jim Saylor, that's a magician. Sally Crow, that's a lady that wrote a book about death and dying and psychic stuff. And June 30th is Mike Hacker. We're going to be talking about his audiobook releases on Audible and things like that. I need to get you the Salicro PDF. I forgot to do that, so I need to remember that. And then Augie Nosh in July, and Jeffrey Shanks. I know he has to come on about weird archaeology stuff. Pretty soon I'm going to be having to do the old September, October lineup. The fall lineup. Need to write a little one and see if they have any paranormal weird stuff coming out for that. Ghost stuff or whatever. Have you seen anything weird in UFOs or cryptids, like book-wise lately? I know I saw they're doing a Hunt for the Skinwalker graphic novel for Image Comics. They have a Kickstarter. Like I guess it's like a big book, like a comic based on that book from Image Comics.
Yeah, I haven't actually. And honestly, I haven't looked really that much. For my blogs, I've been continuing to look back at sort of older texts. Um, and every now and then I'll sort of dip back into some of the stuff that's going on right now, and it's what I find is that there are like two main groups of people that are kind of publishing or studying right now. and one group are older, some older people, kind of like, like maybe, 40s, 50s, 60s. And they're just like, most of them are just rehashing stuff that has been done before. And so I'm really not too interested in that. Um, you know, and, but then there's another group of folks that are younger. They're like in their 20s, maybe early 30s. And they're not just rehashing stuff. I mean, they're going back to old cases and they're doing some more research, but they're actually trying to sort of refine things again, So there's like a whole new crop of people who have rediscovered John Keel and some of the early Jacques Vallée, and they're going back and, like the young woman who does the podcast, the tin hat, another tinfoil hat person, whatever her name is, Zelda, is that her name? She does really, really great research on, she goes back and looks at older cases, kind of unusual cases, and does all this extra research about them, and to try to figure out like the larger context that the reports might have happened in. And she likes to look at really strange cryptid reports, like that, really odd stuff. And then there's a woman named, what's her name? Laura Rowson or something. She's out of the UK. She has a podcast called The Paranormal Scholar, and she does some really interesting kind of long form historical videos. And she's got a great voice anyway. She's nice. She's nice to listen to when you're working, but she does a really good job too. So I'm much more interested in that kind of stuff right now. Not so much interested in going out into the field and trying to find things now. There are things happening. I mean, there have been a number of sightings around in the area where I live just recently. There's been some triangle stuff. There's been some fireballs. I think my friend Gail Beatty has gone back out in the field a little bit to examine a couple of sightings here in Ulster County. So she's kind of getting out of her comfort zone. So I might reconnect with her, sometime over the summer. I'm still trying to put together a team between me and a couple of other guys to do an overnight investigation at the gym, the haunted gym where I go, because there's been some activity there, some interesting, different activity there. That whatever manifests there does the kind of comes and goes in cycles, and it always seems to be trying something a little bit different to get attention. But the guy who owns the gym, he has put up all these new cameras, the very, very sensitive motion detector cameras with audio capability, because a lot of what he's getting now isn't just visual stuff, but sound. He's getting really weird sounds that can't be traced to anything.
Oh, I was going to say, do you know if does he do radio ever? That'd be interesting if he ever.
He might, but the thing is that he doesn't want to be too public himself, because he owns a business, and he's both afraid of losing customers, but he's also afraid of people coming and disrupting the business,
Yep.
So
you can't blame him there. That's the big thing with these ranches down here. There's a bunch of stuff going on, but you can't find out where it is for sure. Even if I know people that are going to them, but they cannot tell you.
Right.
Because they don't want them to ever tell anyone the name of the business.
Right. So, exactly. Yeah.
So they're trying to do it anonymously, like tell the story anonymously or whatever. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Basically, there's another race that lives here that is alien and is eating our cattle or something for food.
Or some bad thing.
Yeah, something's going on for sure, no doubt about it. But And yeah, I said the animated series reminded me of Ralph Bakshi. I know it's not, but it reminds me of that. I love me some Ralph Bakshi. That's some probably saying his name wrong. I always do that, but that Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Well, I don't know. I know he did the Lord of the Rings cartoon, but the Hobbit, did he? I can't remember. He might have been involved. I don't know if he did the actual graphics for that, but I've seen those so many times. I remember first seeing those was doing streams or something at someone's house. The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Those cartoons are amazing. There's a Return of the King. It's not the best, but it's still fun to watch. Like that little weird 3 cartoons that came out in like the 70s, was it? You ever seen those? Those 3, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. Is Lord of the Rings Ralph
I
Bakshi?
think I've seen one of them, but I haven't seen them all.
They're good. They're definitely stoner food. Or any kind psychedelics, but all right, everybody, we're at the tail end here. I need some grub. I'm peaking.
Yeah.
But it's been a good show. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks Wham. Thanks JoJo. Thanks Robert. Thanks Mark Eddie. Thanks Michelle for hopefully the Michael Carter situation. And everybody have a good weekend. Good night, everybody.
Happy holiday.
Eat some roast.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Some hamburger.